Welcome to this week's edition of Greyhound TV Quarantine Interviews. I'm John Williams, joined today by 2018 Gilman graduate Thomas Booker. Thomas was captain of the Gilman football team and is now a defensive end at Stanford going into his junior year. Thomas, great to see you today.
Good to see you as well. Hope you're doing well.
All right, so just for starters, what do you think your favorite memory was when you were at Gilman? I mean, whether it's on the football field or off.
I was at Gilman for a pretty good amount of time since pre-first. So I have a lot of memories to pull from. If I had to get one, this is kind of a cop out. It probably is anybody's favorite memory if they were at Gilman during this time. The 100th game versus McDonough. I was a sophomore that year, so I was kind of in between just getting into high school and getting ready to go. So for me, like that really marked my time. That was a high point. I was playing. A lot of my friends in my class were playing, and that was the biggest sporting event I had ever been a part of,
Yeah.
bar none. I think there might have been 10,000 people that showed up at that game in McDonough. Um, I'm a guy that I actually like playing away, so I like playing at McDonough. Gilman is great, but I love playing at McDonough, especially when you can beat them at their home field. For that, that was probably like the crowning moment of my high school career. So I really, really enjoyed that.
Right, I remember that they had the stands all the way around the field. That was an awesome scene. And then
Yeah.
just getting back to football, you were obviously an amazing player at Gilman, and then I was looking at some of the schools that offered you a spot on their roster before you left Gilman, which ranged from Ivies to some of the best SEC schools, which kind of speaks to both you on and off the field. Do you think Stanford is where you landed on because that kind of encompasses both the high level football and smart academics?
No, definitely that was my criteria for school. I wanted to go somewhere where I didn't have to compromise in any area, of my identity. I feel like Gilman was that for me. I got to do what I wanted to do academically and athletically. It matched what I wanted to do as well. So I didn't see any reason why I should settle in college. So I feel like Stanford and a couple of other schools were really, really like at the top of those lists in terms of academics and football matching up. So it was just a fortunate thing for me to be able to have that opportunity. I was very, very fortunate to have a bunch of other schools that were interested, but Stanford, for me at least, was the perfect combination of those two things. That's why I ended up going with the Cardinals.
Right. Obviously, a great football school. And then looking to this year, I mean, obviously, given the circumstances, has there been an opportunity for your coach, Coach Shaw, to kind of fill you guys in on what the preseason might look like, especially considering that fall sports usually have a lot of practice over
It's
the
a
summer?
bit difficult this year. Yeah, so it's a bit difficult this year, just because of, again, COVID-19 making things a little bit uncertain. It's a lot of contingency planning, so there's not anything really set in stone about going back to campus, and it's kind of a play it by ear type of thing, as things are really being updated like day by day, week by week, as I'm sure is going on with basically everything else in the country. So it's been kind of hard to get a bead on like plans for us getting back. But again, we're meeting via Zoom with our position coaches, talking to those guys, and trying to stay ready, so we don't have to get ready when we actually do get to come back. Because the plan is to hopefully have a season this year. Not exactly sure what that means in terms of how many games, whether there will be out of conference games or anything like that, but that is the plan. So we're working with that, trying to stay ready, and uh,
Right. And then something else I wanted to ask you about was the two teams you've kind of been on at Stanford have been a little different in that last year you guys were a 4-win team, and your freshman year you guys won 9 games. How do you think uh, your team is going to return to success this year? What do you think y'all's case is?
So last year was definitely an aberration for a lot of reasons. I mean, you don't want to blame anything on injury, but we did have a lot of unfortunate things happen with that. We had our starting left tackle go down. We had our quarterback go down. Shoot, I even had an injury the first game. So there's a lot of different things going on that were a bit of like uncontrollable stuff, you know. So I'm glad that we get a lot of like healthy bodies back, and we have a lot of great players coming back. Paulson Adebo, to name one of them. Davis Mills, our quarterback, to name another. And we have a lot of other young guys that are just like coming up really, really, really fast. And the good thing about, I guess the only like kind of silver lining of having some injuries is that young guys get a chance to kind of show their mettle. And I think a lot of our young guys did last year because they got pushed in spots that they might not have thought coming into college they'd be playing like that. So we have a lot of guys like Caillou Blue Kelly at cornerback, and a couple of other people that are really, really like bursting at the seams. I think you're gonna have a big year for us. So I think the key for us this year is that we have the talent and all that, the coaching staff, and all of that. Just putting it together, and again, you hope the injury bug doesn't bite you, but that is football. So being ready if you're the next man up to perform is the biggest thing. But yeah, our coaching staff and all that stuff is great. So we just need to execute at the end of the day.
Right. That's just really impressive to hear this mindset that you have about the positivity that you look for in when it comes to injuries. Continuing on the topic of mindset, how does the mindset kind of work for you when you're preparing for a game in such a competitive conference, going up against some future NFL guys like Justin Herbert, or going over to Notre Dame and playing Ian Book? How do you prepare mentally for these kinds of things?
So I think you look at each game kind of as its own individual test. You know, you look at the practice week as you studying for that test, and each test has its own unique challenges and nuances. So I look at every single game, every single different player as kind of like their own separate challenge. You know, we do have some fantastic players that we're playing up against, and that's why you come to the Pac so that's why you come to Stanford to play that kind of football. So I think what you realize really quickly in college football, once you really get accustomed to it, is that yes, these are people just like everybody else. They are football players just like you are, you know, and you treat them as such. So while they're fantastic players, like you're on this level as well for a reason. So just realizing that and not getting blinded by the lights is big, and just understanding like again, yes, it's at a different stage, it's larger than high school football unless you played in Texas, because Texas has this crazy thing of having 70,000 people come to every game, but it's usually a bit different that way. But again, it's just football at the end of the day. So prepare for every opponent, and don't take anything for granted. You know, don't look by anybody. That is the one thing that I can tell you will never get you anything good in college football, looking past opponents. So yeah, just prepare for every challenge like it's something new and different, and take that medal with you in the game.
Great. And then you're talking about some of the big stages and all these different tests. What do you think has been your favorite tradition that you've encountered at Stanford thus far?
Favorite tradition that I've encountered at Stanford. Well, I think the biggest stage that I've been on since I've been at Stanford, or probably the coolest experience I've had, was when we went up to Oregon, and Oregon was ranked higher than us. I think we were ranked number 7 at the time, and we came in there and we were losing by 2 touchdowns, I think, at halftime. And if you look at the ESPN win probability thing, they have an algorithm that will spit out a number of the probability of that team winning, and it was a 99% probability that Oregon was going to win that game late in the fourth quarter. And miraculously, we have a fumble recovery by Joey Alfieri. He takes it back 90-some yards, scores, get another fumble recovery from Noah Williams, and we go down and score. Take it to OT. Paulson Adebo comes in clutch with like 2 or 3 consecutive pass deflections where they tried him 2 or 3 consecutive times, and we win the game in Autzen Stadium. Everything was silent. You know, I think that was one of the coolest things. When we sang the alma mater to our fans, there might have been like maybe 100 people there, 200 people there that were wearing Cardinal red. So I think the alma mater is definitely one of my favorite Stanford traditions, specifically when we are singing it at opposing fields, and specifically when it's an upset.
I do have to say that's one of my favorite parts about college football, just that anything can really happen. I forget, was College Game Day there that game? I remember that being a huge game between.
Yeah, it was actually. That was the crazy thing. I think that was my first experience with College Game Day. And again, like the crazy thing about Oregon Stadium is that it might not be the biggest stadium, might not be a big house in Michigan or something like that, but the way they have it engineered sonically, it is drowning sound. You cannot hear anything. And the craziest part about it was that the only way you knew you were doing well was when the stadium was completely silent. You know, so after that game, you heard nothing. So it was just really, really satisfying to go in there and come out with a W after really being kind of like looked at as the underdogs.
I know I could probably ask you about every game and you could have so many awesome stories, but I'm sure you probably have a lot of work to do. But just before we go, is there anything else you want to say to the Gilman community or add about your time at Gilman or Stanford?
So I think for me at Gilman, an important part of it for me was just like understanding the lessons that I learned at Gilman and how those things could extrapolate to like other things that I'm doing. And a big thing that I would urge a lot of people to take from their Gilman experience, even in quarantine, is first off enjoy your experience while you're having it. I know that's cliche, and I know that a lot of people say that, but honestly, like things become a lot more complex once you get out of Gilman. You think it's complex now, it definitely changes. And just also like understand that the time management skills and the ability to juggle so many different things that you're forced to learn at Gilman um, definitely applies to a lot of other things you do in your life. I've definitely seen that my addition or my transition to college has been easier as a result of being forced, to play sports every single season at Gilman. So just understand that, like, I understand that a lot of it seems like drudgery while it's going on, and it just seems hard, but it does pay dividends when you go other places. And just in general for the COVID-19 pandemic, stay safe, guys. Like, honestly, I understand that quarantine is difficult and staying at home can be boring, but at some point we will come out of this, and it's your job to stay ready, so you don't have to get ready, whether that's athletically, academically, or anything. Involve yourself in something you haven't gotten time to do before. Use this time as as something to better yourself, and don't take it as a pause. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you so much for having me on, and go Hounds.
Thomas, thank you so much. You've been doing a great job at Stanford, and I'm sure we'll be looking for you on Sundays. Thanks again for taking the time.
Absolutely.